Welcome, listeners, to This Month in Previews. It's a monthly gathering where the crew members from the Comics Community Podcast sit down with the latest Diamond Previews catalog and call out some of our most anticipated and noteworthy comics and comics-related stuff coming out 2 months from now in comic shops all over the country. I'm Phil, your host, and joining me for this month's show are folks that all our regular listeners will be familiar with. Let's meet them now. We've got Mitch.
Hello.
And we've got Raphael.
Howdy, everyone.
And keeping our backs covered, it's Randy.
How you doing?
Also, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Summit Comics and Games, located in downtown Lansing, Michigan, just blocks from the Capitol building at 216 South Washington Square. Summit's where we get our copies of previews, and if you're in the Lansing area, be sure to stop by and say hello. Or you can visit Summit online anytime at summitlansing.com. So onward to previews. I just realized I didn't fix the header at the top, but this is really, contrary to what it says up there, issue 340, dated January 2017. As we said, previews is a catalog. In fact, it's the catalog used by comic shops everywhere to order the comics that will be coming out at least 2 months from now. So that means the things that we're going to be talking about on today's show are going on sale no sooner than this March 2017. Lucky for us, though, many comic shops, both brick and mortar and online, make previews available to their customers so they too can place advance orders through them. Now, previews is just one book, but it's got a different cover on each side, and that's what you see here on the left. Marvel books get their own catalog. That's what you see on the right. But both catalogs should be packaged together when you get previews. And if you can't find a copy, or you just want to play along at home with us today, then do visit Diamond, their website, where you can get an online version at the URL shown there. Also, be sure to ask your shop about any pre-order policies that they may have in place. And take note, the cutoff date for submitting orders to your favorite retailer this month is January 18th, 2017. So each of our panelists have been asked to choose up to 3 returning titles, 3 number ones, 1 original graphic novel, and 1 trade or hardcover collection. Have been asked to choose up to 3 returning titles, 3 number ones, 1 original graphic novel, and 1 trade or hardcover collection. No memento.
3 returning titles, 3 number ones, 1 original graphic novel, and 1 trade or hardcover.
Note to self, mute the laptop you're monitoring your own program on. Okay, let's skip to this. This is an interesting month, folks. Sometimes we all pick the same things and we have troubles figuring out, if we all pick the same title, who gets to talk about it. But this one, unlike the others, we each carved out our own little pile of comics for each publisher. And not many are sharing titles. So let's get started right off the bat with Dark Horse Comics. I was going to kick this over to Randy, who really only had 1 pick, but his was the most popular pick for Dark Horse. We almost all had it. So instead, I think I'm going to deflect to Raphael and say, why in the world aren't you reading Black Hammer #7, Raphael?
Because I didn't pick up the first 6 issues, and I was a little lost.
Okay. Let me divert a little bit. Has anybody seen a trade solicit for the first story arc? Or might this be the last one?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Anyway, Black Hammer 7, the book we're talking about. And this one, they kind of each have been centering on a single character of the cast, but now we get around to the, if I'm not mistaken, the origin of Black Hammer, the title character.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten, the title of the book is Black Hammer, but you kind of, after reading those first few issues, you forget that that's an actual character in the book, because in the book he's not there. That's one of the mysteries. But they start focusing on the other characters and their problems so much you kind of forget about that until, what was the most recent issue that's out? Is it 5 or 4?
I think it's 5. Is it? And I can't remember her name. She's kind of the
Dragonfly or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Shoot. Don't ask us trick questions like that, Mitch.
Sorry. But yeah, that issue, whichever is the most current issue, that's the issue where they kind of bring it back around and say, oh yeah, Black Hammer again. They bring him up again. Mm-hmm.
And the girl in this cover, in my experience, has kind of been making just an appearance on the last page or 2 of issues, but she's kind of been a backstory until then, so maybe not so much anymore. I'll keep going then with Dark Horse. And I had Neil Gaiman, American Gods, Shadows #1. I'm not sure of the title there. Does that suggest that there could be more American God miniseries after Shadows? I don't know. Coincidentally, though, I am reading this book as we speak. So the timing of this release is coincidental. I'm now hurrying to finish it, A, before the comic series comes out, but B, before the TV show that the comic series is based on from Stars, or comes out on Stars, I should say. I know right off the bat, Raphael, you're the big Neil Gaiman fan that I'm immediately aware of. Have you read this novel?
I actually haven't, which I mean that's the only reason why it wasn't on my list, and also I kind of figured one of you guys would be talking about it. But as someone who's I read a lot of his short stories, but I actually haven't picked up most of his like actual fiction. So it's one of those things that I always hear good things about, but I've never actually read. So maybe I'll try to pick up the comic as a way to get into it, but I'll probably be asking you once you've actually finished the book if you need to like read them in any sequential order.
Okay. Well, there's only just one novel, so and all I can and again, because of the title, I'm not quite sure what we're going to get. The description sounds like the beginning of the book, at least. So, off to a good start. And I like the casting. Have you seen casting photos of the TV show, or been following this at all? Well, maybe we'll save that for an upcoming episode of our regular podcast then. Next, I had from Richard Corbin, Shadows on the Grave, #3. Just got the first issue of this a couple weeks ago. It's a black and white book, and I thought this was going to be a good book, a book that would smell really good based on the paper, but it kind of smells like a bunch of chemicals. And Mitch, I realized I saw what you have later coming up here under the Dark Horse banner, so let's talk about Richard Corbin again in a few minutes. But I should say this is just love Richard Corbin. He's one of the very few artists that will bring me out and to buy pretty much anything he does, regardless of what the story is. I just really enjoy his work. So Shadows on the Grave from Dark Horse. Which leaves us then with Department H #12, which is my Matt Kent fix every month. This is kind of what do they call it? A closed box mystery. It's a murder mystery, but because it takes place at the bottom of a sea in a research vessel, you know that whoever did it is right there amongst our cast of characters. And to add suspense, the underwater vessel is flooding more and more each issue. And he's carrying that off quite well. Interesting art. So that's Department H #12. And that then, with that, I'll kick it over to Raphael. What do you got from Dark Horse?
All right. Well, the first thing that I have, guys, is Hellboy in the BPRD 1954 Ghost Moon. This is from the same creative team that's been doing the other 1954 stuff. So you have Mike Mignola writing with Chris Robertson, with artwork done by Brian Sharia. The 1954 series has kind of been like a interesting kind of like short stories from the Hellboy universe, like back when he was first working for the BPRD and they were first sending him on field missions. Each one of the little series they do isn't exactly like
We got you. Anybody else there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. I think we lost Raphael. Let's wait for him to come back. Mitch, I'll direct to you for Dark Horse.
Okay. Well, my first one that I've got from Dark Horse is Rebels: These Free and Independent States. It's a sequel to.
Me too.
Oh, you're back.
You guys hearing me okay?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. You faded out.
Oh, sorry about that. I may have had a little bit of a internet hiccup there.
Okay. Mitch, finish Rebels, and then we'll hop back to Raphael.
Okay. So it's a Rebels. This is a new series, a sequel to Brian Wood's Rebels series about the American Revolutionary War. This takes place 20 years after, in 1794. And it's about the part of history, at least American history, that's not well told, or at least most people don't really hear about it. You kind of skip over the parts between the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. But this is more about the beginning of the nation. And it's going to follow Seth Abbott, who's the son of John Abbott, who they followed in the Rebels series. At least for many of the issues, they followed him. So now it's going to talk about the First Navy, essentially, of the United States. So I'm interested in history, interested in this book, and Brian Wood's a great writer, so his stuff is always interesting.
Very good. I never knew how much historical fiction goes on in comics until we started the show and you came on board, because you're the historical fiction fan and you do a good job of finding those series. Is there a better publisher than others for such work in your experience?
No, not really. It really is like you said. You kind of gotta pick it out and grab it. Each publisher kind of does their own versions of it. So if you're looking for it, you definitely have to look around. There's not really one that you can focus on.
Okay, all right. Still there with us, Raphael?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You were telling us about some Hellboy.
Okay, gotcha. Did anyone hear anything that I said, or was I out that whole time?
I don't think much. Let's start over just in case.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Because I just kind of went on talking there, and I think my internet dropped out, so I basically told the whole summary. Anyways, so the first pick I had was Hellboy in the BPRD, 1954, Ghost Moon, issue 1 of 2. This is from the same team that did the rest of the 1954 stuff. So you have Mike Mignola writing, along with Chris Robertson, with the artwork by Brian Cheria. Each of the 1954 stories is kind of like little snippets of the Hellboy universe that take place back when Hellboy was just beginning to do field work for the BPRD. So he's still kind of like wet behind the ears and is kind of like learning how to operate in the field with other agents. I think they've done 3 kind of like short series of this. The first one was, I think, 4 issues, and this one is just a 2-parter. So they're great if you like Hellboy, but maybe you haven't like kept on reading with the rest of the stuff that's been out lately. If you're new to the Hellboy universe, it's good, and if you've actually like been a long-time reader, it's kind of interesting to see his character development and see kind of how he became a little bit more of a lone wolf like he is in the comics now. So I definitely recommend it. Pick it up, and from the preview, little preview that you have in the actual previews issue, Hellboy is fighting a horse demon. So if you've ever wanted to see Hellboy punch a horse in the face, this is a comic for you.
Horse face punching fun.
And for my next selection, you can find this on page, page 72. That's the Once and Future Queen #1, which is a new miniseries. It's going to be a 5-part miniseries. And it's a unique twist on the original Arthurian tale of King Arthur. The story centers around a 19-year-old chess prodigy who stumbles upon the sword Excalibur. And upon pulling Excalibur from its stone, the familiar tale of King Arthur kind of starts anew, but this time with a wider variety of characters hailing from different nationalities and heritages. The artwork is really vibrant, and I've always been a real big fan of kind of the classic King Arthur myth, so it's going to be fun to kind of see a modern take on that. And the artwork is from Nick Brokenshire, and the writing's by Adam P. Nave.
Yeah, I thought of putting that one on my list too. It looks very fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I just kind of want to give a chance. And since it's only like a 5-part series, I don't have to invest too much time in it, which is always a pro for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe I have one more selection, which you can find on page 63. And this is actually another Hellboy pick, which is The Visitor and how and why he stayed. Issue 1 kind of deals with the fact that when Hellboy was born, an alien race kind of started monitoring him. That alien decided to spare his life and has now kind of been monitoring him for his entire existence, up into another Hellboy comic where this character actually dies. So now you kind of get to see retroactively what that character was doing the whole time he was monitoring Hellboy, and kind of see his take on humanity as a whole as he kind of monitors us as a species and tries to see how we kind of show compassion for people who are different. Because I guess the aliens expected us to either kill or just kind of abandon Hellboy, and they're kind of fascinated by the fact that we decided to take him in and have him work for us. So the aliens you haven't seen too much of in the Hellboy series. If you want to see a little bit more of that, or if you were a fan of, I think The Conquering Worm was where the aliens made their first appearance, you can definitely pick this up.
I'm not familiar with the Hellboy books too much. Is Paul Grist a regular artist?
I don't believe he normally is. It changes every now and then, and especially with like these smaller miniseries that they're writing, they kind of just get a little bit of anyone to kind of jump in and provide art.
He's been a favorite of mine in the past. He put out a series with Image a few years ago called Mudman, and then he's known for an indie run many years ago by the name Kane. It was a creator-owned series he did, I think. Nice to see him here doing work for Dark Horse with Hellboy stuff. Or yeah, nice.
And I believe I think that's my last Dark Horse pick.
Let's see.
Oh nope, I had one more here. My apologies. How could I forget about Aliens Defiance number 11? Aliens Defiance is still one of my favorite horror series right now. Dark Horse is actually putting out a lot of stuff that I like. I'm a few issues behind on Aliens Defiance, and I might actually switch over to picking up in trade. I was picking up the single issues before so I could kind of loan them out to friends, but at this point I'm just so invested in the story that I think I just want to kind of collect it all. So
That's
my
another-
normal recommendations go to Aliens Defiance.
Yeah, and it's another Brian Wood story.
Yep.
I know it's not his first. Has he ever have two series going on at a time for them? For Wood?
Maybe
I'm actually
back.
not
Maybe back when he was doing the Vikings stories, he might have had a couple of those going at the same time.
Oh, okay. I guess I meant Aliens titles because he's always been doing them lately, which kind of surprised me, I guess. Nice to see a name like that attached to a licensed property.
Yeah, I think this is his first Aliens title.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I guess I thought he'd done some before. All right. Mitch, take it away for Dark Horse.
Sure. I've got on page 79. I guess we'll continue with the Aliens theme here. Aliens versus Predator, Life and Death. So last year I kind of was tough on Dark Horse about their Fire and Stone miniseries, how they messed it up. Well, this time for Life and Death, they're doing it the right way, which is they're waiting for one series to end before they start the next series. And that way you don't know how the previous series ended.
That's good.
So yeah, this one picks up where the Aliens series left off. So you've got Colonial Marines and aliens, and now the Predators have joined in on this planet that's full of ancient technology, and of course the aliens and the black goo from Prometheus, and so they're really mixing all of their genres into this one story, Life and Death. And this will be the finale in a couple of months, so you pick it up in trade shortly after, I guess. And then, Car, you got a question?
I was going to ask, is Dark Horse yet doing anything with the new the sequel to Prometheus? Is that coming out yet in comic form or anything related to it?
Nothing like official, or at least nothing they've announced is going to be released. But
okay.
I'm sure they're working on something.
Okay.
Because they're definitely using the engineers in their stories.
Yes.
So, but the movie takes place, if I'm thinking of my timeline correctly, the movie takes place after Prometheus, before Fire and Stone. So it's before this series as well. So it's hard to keep the timelines in jive, but I think if they did a comic book series, it would then take place before Fire and Stone. So I don't know if they want to go back that far.
Okay. Thanks for keeping us up to date.
Sure.
You're our alien chronology guy.
I guess. Next, I had Black Hammer as well. But then we talked about that, so we'll talk about Harrow County on page 65. This is still going strong. They've expanded the lore of this series a lot, so I'm excited to see where it goes. We've found there's more people like Emmy. She's not the only one. You know, she's magical in some way, but we found out that there are more people like her. So they're starting to bring more of a mythology and more interesting characters for her to interact with. So it's still one of the best series going as far as I'm concerned. I guess that's it for returning titles. Then I had some. Were you able to find that graphic novel?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
Although I was going to ask you how you heard about it because I couldn't actually find it in previews.
I went to the previews
Was it on
link.
the site?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
on the site. That's where I
Yeah.
found it.
There's discrepancy sometimes between what they show on their previous catalog site and what they show in the book itself. Makes me wonder if this was a late edition.
Yeah, maybe. And this goes back to your Richard Corbin.
Yeah.
But it's the poems of Edgar Allan Poe in comic book form, which, I mean, his poems are very dark and very mysterious. So I think they would make excellent comic books, especially in the way it depends on what they mean. Depends on how you interpret them, and that's one of the interesting things about Poe.
Okay. I have several of these, and I got excited when I saw this because I didn't realize that they had collected his work. I've a couple times I've thought to myself, I want to go back and get all that Richard Corbin Dark Horse stuff. Because over the last maybe 5 years, he's been putting out a lot of. They don't get any attention, but they're 4 to 6 issues long, and they always sometimes they're just 2 issues. But man, again, like I said, I love his artwork, and he has such a mood and a style to him. I would like to someday talk to Jason about him. But when I saw there was a collection of all those series under one cover, I added this instantly to my order. But I also saw that this came out in 2014, and I think there've been a mini series or 2 come out since then, which directs me back to the previews paper catalog, because I think they list some of those on the same page as they list that other Corbin book, which now lost me. Anyway, thanks for Corbin, Dark Horse, and I was glad that you pointed this out, Mitch, because I had missed it.
So maybe this will be like a deluxe edition of whatever's already been printed.
Yeah, I think it's like $25 hardcover, I think.
Sounds about right. And then finally, to bring it back to the beginning, for the collections, I had Rebels trade paperback, Well-Regulated Militia. So if you want to catch up on the Rebels story, here you go. You can catch up on the trade paperback. It's 10 issues. And like I said, the first few issues follow this one man and his journey through the Revolutionary War. And then the last few issues are just sort of snapshots of different people. Like there's one that's all about a British soldier. There's one that's all about a young Native American who gets involved with the war. And there's one about a woman who gets involved in the war. So if you want a snapshot of life in early America, there you go. Read Rebels.
Very good. Okay. That wraps up Dark Horse and takes us to DC. We all have things from DC, I believe. So let's return things back to Randy, who's kind of responsible for reinvigorating my own interest in what he's going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. This previews is all about Superman. It's we have Superman 18 and 19, which also comes into play with Action Comics number 975 and 976. Another cool thing about all these covers is if you stack them on top of one another, it makes one giant vertical image. So look out for that if you're collecting the single issues. But it's a story called Superman Reborn, parts 1 through 4. Superman 18 and 19 is written by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, and Action Comics is written by Dan Jurgens. So the story is basically that Superman is not what we think he is. Right now we have basically the original Superman who survived his universe collapsing, and he's kind of found his place in this new rebirth universe. And the Superman of that universe has passed away. But what we're going to find out from Mr. Oz, who we're also going to find out who Mr. Oz is is that Superman is not all that he's cracked up to be. And what he is a little bit more unsettling. And according to the creators, it involves a multiverse, including the Superman of Mark Miller and Dave Johnson's Red Son, and the President Superman of Multiversity. So they said the multiverse is visiting. Superman and Lex must team up, God Slayers arrive, and at the heart of it is Superman's family, John and Lois. So definitely sounds like a really cool 4-part Superman story, and it's going to be a good mystery with a good resolution, hopefully.
Looking forward to it. I guess that then takes it to me. I have these very same things as well. It's our shared item. I also have Batwoman #1, tailing right off of last month's Batwoman Rebirth special. It's the creative team bringing me to this one. Honestly, I know nothing about Batwoman, other than what Killing Joke, right? So I'm looking forward.
Batgirl.
Is it Batgirl? See, there you go. So I'm looking forward to what Marguerite Bennett does. Tini and I've been enjoying since way before he ever came to DC. He's on the Woods, and I've been enjoying that series. So anyway, looking forward to that. Savage Things #1. This is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Vertigo miniseries of 8. And I don't have the creator here. I forget who it was. I'm not almost tempted to say it was he who brought me to it. But in a way, it sounds like a trope: kidnapped children trained to be agents, and then they come back as grown-ups to make us wish we hadn't done that. Since it's Vertigo doing it, and again, I don't have the creative team in front of me, I thought I might give it a chance anyway. Next up, I'm also reading Tom King's Batman. Again, this is all for Tom King. I'm still a little behind on the storyline, but I'm enjoying what I've been reading so far. And I'm just gonna miss him on the Vision. After that, then from Vertigo comes The Clean Room by Gail Simone, who brought me to the title, and this is one of the most twisted titles I'm reading in all the right ways. So if you're looking for something kind of off the beaten path to try, the first trade of Clean Room wouldn't be a bad place to start. I will kick things off. That's all I've got for DC. This time, Raphael, take over for me.
Thank you, Phil. Since DC Rebirth happened, I've had a weird revelation, and that's that I don't like Batman, and I can't read Batman comics, but I'm oddly fascinated by the people that Batman hangs out with. So for that reason, I started picking up things like Nightwing and like Red Hood and stuff like that. I've been reading Nightwing on and off since his Rebirth series came out, and so far I've liked it. But I'm looking forward to Titans Annual #1 because 1, it features Nightwing, and 2, it's written by Dan Abnett. Mighty is he, Dan Abnett. Artwork is by Minkyu Jung, and I'm just kind of excited to see Nightwing in a situation where he's kind of hanging out with people who like don't betray him. In his last series, he had a team up that basically immediately like broke his spine, like in like the first like 3 pages that were hanging out. So it'd be kind of nice to see him in a situation that doesn't involve him being betrayed every 5 seconds. So just more Nightwing is what I'm looking forward to. But my next pick was actually Batman Beyond #6, which you can find on page 94. Batman Beyond has always been something that I've liked since I was a kid. Once again, I can't read normal Batman. I don't know what it is. But the new Batman Beyond series so far has been pretty entertaining. The first arc had him dealing with a new Joker gang that had sprung up in Gotham. They've made a few artistic changes. Things are a little bit more, I want to say, lens flary, if that makes sense. Gotham almost kind of looks like it has like a Blade Runner aesthetic, which is kind of an interesting turn. And even the Batman Beyond suit has gone a few visual changes that just make it look a little bit more striking. So overall, I'd recommend the series to people who either want to get into Batman Beyond or are just kind of experimenting with other Batman titles. But the writing's by Dan Jurgens, and the artwork is by Bernard Chang. So looking forward to more of this. It's a new story arc, so I'm definitely going to be picking it up. My final selection is going to be Red Hood and the Outlaws, Volume 1. This is written by Scott Lobdell. Not sure how to pronounce that, with artwork by Dexter Soy. So can't really read Batman titles, but for some reason I'm always just so fascinated by his sidekicks. Of course, the Red Hood kind of being the outlaw of the group and being a little bit more of the renegade of Batman's disciples. So just kind of an interesting character to read. And I think I picked up his Rebirth issue, but after that, I just decided I'd pick up the rest in trades. So I just kind of waited for this to come out. But I'm definitely fascinated by the character, and I'm interested to pick it up.
One of the more striking figures, in my opinion, in the case full of statues at the front of Summit. Have you seen that? I don't know if it's there anymore.
I don't think I have.
Pretty sharp looking. Nice. I guess that leaves Mitch then. Mitch, I see what your first pick was. It was Batwoman 1. I don't have it queued up. Tell me why we should be reading Batwoman 1.
Well, Batwoman's one of my favorite characters for sure in the DC universe, and this one, she's been in Detective Comics recently, but she's been part of a team, and that's not really been working for me. So this one, she's going to go out on her own, and it looks like by the write-up here, she's going to go away from Gotham and kind of deal with some things in her past that she may have done, before she became Batwoman. So, it'd be interesting just to see a little bit of history of Batwoman, especially if Phil, like you said, you're not too familiar with her, so maybe this will give you some backstory.
Yeah, it's the Rebirth that's making me check out characters I've never really tried before. So,
and the other thing is Steve Epting, the artist. He's one of my favorite Captain America artists. So him drawing Batwoman should be interesting.
Ah, nice. You can kind of come off your Marvel boycott over at DC.
That's right. Let's see. Then what did I have next here? Oh, I had some strange ones for DC this month. They had so many crossovers, I wasn't sure what to choose. So the first one I've got is the Adam Strange Future Quest Annual #1 crossover. Adam Strange is one of those DC characters that they don't use very much because he's always out in outer space doing outer space stuff, and half the time he's dead in continuity. But he is an interesting character, a fun character. So to see him team up with Johnny Quest and that whole crew is just really interesting and weird. There was one that I don't have on here, but was ridiculous. I just want to give it a shout out, which was the Suicide Squad and Banana Splits crossover. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hanna-Barbera Banana
Not at
Splits
all.
crew, but they're like, like Snagglepuss and characters like that. They're just like goofy anthropomorphic animals
With Harley Quinn, you said?
with Suicide Squad.
Oh, Suicide Squad. Okay.
Yeah. So DC is just going all out with their crossovers. But instead of that, I decided to pick the next one here, Green Lantern Space Ghost Annual crossover #1. I don't know. These are just two. Again, Green Lantern crosses over with a lot of characters these days, a lot of other things. So why not team him up with Space Ghost? I mean, they're both in space.
Boy, Green Lantern really gets a lot around. Could we also put 7 Degrees of Separation, Star Trek, and Planet of the Apes on that cover too, if we wanted?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Their other crossover they had was Booster Gold and the Flintstones. So if you're interested in just weird crossovers, this is definitely your month. Let's see, those were my new titles. And then for returning, got DC Bombshells #23. I've been keeping up with this series since its beginning. It's got great artwork, fun story. Again, it's Marguerite Bennett, so she's a very fun writer. And if you want to see like World War II Justice League with only the female superheroes, then this is the book for you. Let's see, and then I think the final one I had was yet another weird crossover. Batman 66 meets Wonder Woman 77. I like the Wonder Woman 77 titles. I haven't really read the Batman 66. The old Adam West Batman's just not really my thing. But I don't know. Crossovers are fun, so I'll give this one a shot. And I think that's all I had for DC.
Okay. They Warren Ellis paid an homage kind of to Adam Strange in Planetary. Were you familiar with that at all? Back in the
No,
day? I'll try to bring that issue in.
I think the last time I saw him was in the 52, not New 52, but the 52, which was
The
the
weekly series
yeah, the DC event where they put out a single comic
every week.
every week, and then they
Yeah.
turned it into a big a big event that took over all of their books.
Okay.
So that's the last time I saw him.
Oh, that's a while ago then. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. That takes us then to IDW, and we've all got some IDW. Let's just keep it going. Back to Randy.
Well, I'm starting off with what is said to be the gem of the month, Ghostbusters 101, #1. So I don't know how many of you liked the new Ghostbusters movie, but you're gonna have to like it now. It looks like the Ghostbusters want to get back to their roots and teaching, but then somehow their students start poking around the firehouse and accidentally start merging the universe of the new Ghostbusters movie with the comic book universe Ghostbusters. So you're going to get all the new Ghostbusters with the old Ghostbusters, and it has a 6 cover wraparound kind of, how do you say that?
Like a lenticular, is it?
The first 6 covers are interconnected, so they make one giant picture, kind of like the Superman ones.
I thought this looked a little cut off in a way.
Yeah, they have all 6 of them in the actual previews book. It's on page 173. And I don't know. Everything I've read so far for Ghostbusters has been enjoyable. So if you like the movies or even the classic cartoons, it's always a good time. And my next and final pick for IDW is Transformers versus G.I. Joe, the movie adaptation. This has to be one of the best written things ever, so I'm just going to read it verbatim for you. Imagine a world where the greatest comic book crossover of all time inspires a movie adaptation, and that movie adaptation inspires its own comic book. So visionary writer Tom Scioli returns to the weird world of Transformers versus G.I. Joe and brings an even weirder twist to this new story. What would the comic book adaptation of the movie version of the comic book look like? And it's time to find out. This series made no sense to me, but I absolutely loved it. And this just sounds completely bonkers and off the wall. So I want to pick it up and try to make heads or tails of it.
Right up your alley.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I guess I'll tag right off of your bonkers and right up the wall with Starstruck, Old Prolgers Never Die, #2. This actually is a Kickstarter project that I backed, and I was a happy recipient of all 6 issues of this in PDF format not long ago. Wonderful stuff. They're putting it out in comic book form before they release the hardcover for backers, but I'm happy to get it in any way, shape, or form from IDW. If you've not checked out the artwork from Michael Kluda, do your eyes a favor. And if you can handle it, try to get through the crazy story that is Starstruck. It's chaotic. It's stuff from going on every corner of the page. And that is my only IDW pick this week. This month. So I'll then toss it over to Raphael for more IDW.
All right then. Well, the first pick that I had is Judge Dredd Deviations, and the writer is John McCree, and he also provides the art. I've been on a little bit of a Judge Dredd kick since Judge Dredd versus Predator versus Aliens. I think you guys all remember how much fun I had with that. This is kind of like a one-shot based on a what's referred to as a classic Judge Dredd story in which he turns into a werewolf. For what I can take away, this little kind of one-shot story goes into what would happen if he stayed a werewolf. I like Judge Dredd. I like how kind of dark the universe is, but I think I like him being thrown into weird situations even more. So when he's fighting aliens, or he's punching Dracula, or he's turning into a werewolf, you can definitely expect me to pick up that comic. The next one that I had on my list is a returning title, which is The Highlander, The American Dream #2. The writing is by Brian Ruckley with art by Andrea Mutti, I believe is how it's pronounced. The first issue of this, I believe, actually comes out next month or sometime late this month. But I'm a huge fan of the original movie, and the premise is that you're getting kind of like little snippets from Connor McLeod's past, and things like he fights in the Civil War, and you see him fight other immortals throughout time. So it's more of the Highlander universe that you didn't get to see in the movies that you always knew would be awesome. So I'm super excited to pick these up. I know that the first issue is going to blow me away, and I'm just going to want the second issue as soon as it hits the shelf.
As a fan of that, well, of the first one, I really like the premise of these books. Is this the first time, have I asked before, that Highlander has been in comics? Do you know?
I think this is the first time that I'm aware of it being in comics. I know that they had the expanded universe, like the TV shows, and I know they did some books, but I think if there was a comic, I would have bought it by now.
Okay.
So I'm actually not aware of it being in any other comic form, but the lore of the Highlander universe definitely goes way farther than the few movies they did.
Okay.
Does it come with the Queen soundtrack?
Yes.
I would like it to.
It's got the little microchip.
Who wants to live forever?
All right. So it sounds like we're all familiar with it. Let's see. That then takes us to, I lost my place. It's got to be Mitch.
Yeah, I guess so. If Raphael's done. I guess my first one, and really the only returning one I have, is another crossover, Star Trek Green Lantern, Volume 2, Number 4 of 6. It's just a good series. The first volume was good, and the second one kind of picks right up where that one left off. So I'm going to keep reading it. Although it looks like maybe the Guardians return in this one. At least they're in the background there of the cover, so that could be interesting. Because that was one of the things in the first volume was basically the Green Lantern Corps was destroyed in the regular DC universe, and the only way for them to live was to go to a different universe. And so I guess we'll figure out more about that mystery as it goes on. And then the only other book I had from IDW was a hardcover of Infinite Loop. This is one I reviewed, I want to say in 2014 was when this series first came out. It's English language translation, I guess, of a French comic. And, it was very cool art, very interesting story. I think if there are people out there who want, I guess, diverse stories, this is one for you, because it's basically a science fiction time traveling lesbian romance is basically what this is. So if you're interested in those kind of stories, and I guess there aren't many of those around, here's one you might want to pick up.
Is this a collection of individual comics?
It was a series, yeah. It was an individual.
Okay.
I think it was 5 or 6 issue, just mini series.
Okay.
But now this is going to be the deluxe, so it's going to have extra art in the back and comments from the writers and things like that.
You said that was it for you for IDW?
Yeah, that's it for IDW, as far as I know.
Then that'll take us to Image Comics. Once again, Randy was able to resist Image Comics this month, but the rest of us make up for it. Raphael, kick us off with some Image books.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. Our wallets are jealous of your wallet.
I actually had quite a few image picks, so I'll just kind of dig right in. The first one I have is Extremity number 1, which you can find on page 208. It's written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork also by Daniel Warren Johnson. It's a new series, and it looks a little strange. It's a little hard to describe. The issue of previews itself kind of describes it as a futuristic story, kind of in the style of Mad Max. It follows a girl named Thay, or I think Thea, and her whole family and clan are kind of exterminated in like a great battle that kind of turns into more of a slaughter. And during the battle, she loses her mother, and I think her father gets wounded. But the big thing that happens to her is that she loses her hand, and it happens to be her drawing hand. She's actually like a very talented artist. And in kind of like this post-apocalyptic world, like there's very few people who still kind of possess that skill. So losing her hand is a lot more than just like losing her drawing ability. It's like her losing her identity. And there's a few clips that you actually see in the previews comic of her kind of like trying to pick up a pencil with her other non-dominant hand and just immediately kind of like throwing it across the room, just kind of disgusted by the fact that she's lost all this talent. So the story follows the kind of seeking revenge for not just the family that she lost, but the identity that she lost as an artist in a world that no longer has those. So kind of an interesting premise that I'd like to see a little bit more of. The cover kind of shows her holding her kind of stump up like that, and it kind of looks like there's blood everywhere. So that's kind of what caught my eye first, because just that whole image is surprisingly powerful, but at the same time just really strange. And I'm definitely interested to pick up the first comic and see how this character kind of handles not being an artist anymore in a post-apocalyptic world.
I'm looking at the solicit. I've never heard of Studio Ghibli. Does anybody know what that is? It says,
Yeah, they make movies in Japan, like animated movies.
oh, okay. So them doing Mad Max, they're comparing this to. Interesting.
Yeah, their movies are sort of more like sweet kind of fairy tale movies. So you combine that with Mad Max is a definitely strange combination.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
My next pick was Underwinter #1, which you can find on page 212. Underwinter is a new horror series by Ray Fox. He does the artwork and the writing, and it promises a twisted portrait of our dark world. The artwork that I've seen in previews is really reminiscent of kind of watercolor paintings, and the writing itself, that at least the little snippet that you get in the issue of previews, is like really dark but also extremely poetic, and I kind of wasn't expecting that. The little page that we're shown kind of is the retelling of a character's nightmare, and the way he describes the nightmare is that he dreams that he is a violin and that he's being played in like a great symphony and everybody's listening, but as the bow is kind of being drug across his violin body, the sounds that he's making are actually his screams, and everybody's like kind of really enjoying the sound and they can't tell that there's like something wrong with it. And then he kind of snaps back and he's awake. But just that like image that they give you, along with kind of like the really kind of watercolor like artwork, is just really captivating. And if the actual like writer keeps this up and he can kind of keep that extended metaphor going throughout like these multiple issues, I think you're looking kind of you're looking forward to like a really great like horror comic coming out of that. So I'm super excited for it.
Totally didn't notice that was an orchestra at the bottom of that cover.
Yeah. The artwork is a little bit it's a little bit messy the first time you see it, but it definitely rewards you when you go back and look at it more. The first like couple panels that you have in there, it's very visibly at first glance like a guy, like, and there's like a bow being dragged across him, but just like the shape of his body and the way he like contorts, it's made to look like a violin. So it's really cool artwork.
You're going to talk about these this coming year, you know, when you get them.
And
Yeah, I think he's much better known as a writer than an artist, and I'm not sure he's done a lot of art on his own. So that's real interesting for a writer to cross over like that.
Kind of looks painted, some of that.
And my last selection is actually returning. That's Sun Bakery #2, which you can find on page 244, with writing done by Corey Lewis, and he also does the artwork. The reason why I put this on here is because it had such a huge kind of made waves with us with issue 1, and I actually just looked up today, and issue 1 is like selling for like $30 to $50 online. So I think this comic is going to get like a huge fan following. I think so many people already like it, so I'd just be super excited to see what else it has. Because the first issue definitely wasn't a disappointment.
You're going to have to fight Jason for the next issue.
Yeah, and I should note that the issue 1 you're in reference to is probably the original printing of this book. What we're seeing from Image is actually they're reprinting the original issues, so you're probably seeing Corey Lewis's original self-published issues on eBay right now.
If that's the case, then how many issues were actually self-published? Are they like
4, I think. And so I think
Oh,
it was 4 that just came out that a few episodes Jason was really trying to get. So, but now I think we were talking, luckily, a larger publisher has picked it up. And so we'll get to see some bakery with the distribution power that Image Comics has.
excellent, because I know it would be so hard to get my hands on these, and I'm just so interested in like the actual like little short stories. It's just a fun comic to read. But I do believe I have one more, which is actually a collection. That's Seven to Eternity, giant-sized artist proof edition, which you can find on page 224. The writing is by Rick Remender with artwork by Jerome Opina. And I remember the first time that I picked up an issue of this, when I picked up number 1, I actually just like bought a few comics to like kind of read on my way to class. And I sat down with this comic and tried to read it in like, maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, no, there's way too much here for me to go through in that time. Like a proper reading of this comic, like I need to like sit down with like a cup of coffee or something. This collected edition actually only has the first 2 issues. But when you see the first issue of this comic, like I remember it feeling almost like a phone book. Like you get so much in these comics. So it's really cool to just see them collected as just 2 issues. I don't think I've really seen many other comics that are able to do that, just because there's so much in a single issue of this comic. And I know some of you guys read this as well, and I think we all talked about how cool the art was, really kind of muted tones, and those muted tones are broken up by like really vibrant, almost like neon colors. So it's just cool to get a little bit more of the art. And this is the kind of thing that I'd like leave out on a coffee table or show to a friend, just to get him to pick up a few of the issues, maybe in trade paperback form.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool series for sure.
Kind of came out of nowhere for me, but
Yeah, I pick up just about anything Rick Remender, so I'll give it at least a try. But like you said, it was just so dense that it's a very cool series.
Yeah, and I've seen issue 1 of this first printing. I think it's already in 3rd now, but issue 1's already going up for like $25.
Huh.
So this series is quickly catching on, and I'm hearing it as far as collectability goes and vastness of story goes. I'm hearing it being referred to as the next saga. So it could be around for a while. If this is going to interest anybody, hop on now while you can. Not that because they're never printing a trade paperback of this ever. Just kidding. I guess that takes it to me. So I'm going to step off of Seven to Eternity for a minute. I'll be right back. Oh, wait a minute. I'm wrong. Let's head it over to who had Headlopper. That can only be Mitch.
Yeah, that would be me. Headlopper number 5. And speaking of giant issues, Headlopper issues are always like little mini graphic novels because they're only produced quarterly. And this is another one of those examples where the writer and artist, Andrew McLean, he used the first series. Liked his wacky idea of a quarterly comic book about a guy who cuts off heads. But yeah, this is going to be a new story arc, and it's about a guy who's a warrior for hire. He's very noble, but I mean his basic talent is he cuts heads off of things, mostly monsters, and he carries around the head of a witch that he cut off, and the head is still alive and it still talks, but it's such a powerful artifact that he can't really just put it somewhere. He can't destroy it, so he's just got to keep it with him. And the head is like his little comedy sidekick, always making jokes and talking about him and, starting fights and things like that. So it's a fun comic, and I definitely think that if you want something different, something that's got cool art and sort of a Samurai Jack kind of storytelling, I would definitely go for this. And this first issue, or this 5th issue, is going to have a alternate cover by Tony Sandoval, who is our favorite from Doom Boy.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say pick that one up.
Would you? I don't know if you're familiar with them. Would you equate this in size to like Dark Horse Presents? I'm trying to think of. I was going to say Island Magazine, but they changed their format. So
yeah, I'd say it's It's like one of those.
Okay.
I would definitely say it's like Island Magazine size, maybe a double size issue or maybe a little bigger, 60 some pages usually. Yeah, definitely worth the value, and it's only $4.99 usually, so it's definitely good value. Let's see, what did I have next here? Page 226. Is that right? My notes are messed up here. Yes, Black Road. That's right, number 8. This is another story that's continuing. The first trade just came out a couple of months ago, so if you want to get caught up on the story, you can read the trade. It's another kind of historical fiction. It's about the Christian, I guess not quite invasion, but conversion of the Nordic lands, like the Viking territories, basically. And it's about a warrior, a mercenary who's traveling this black road, which is a road full of like bandits and murderers and things like that. And he's trying to get from one sanctuary to another, and all kinds of things happen. So there was a twist at the end of the last storyline, so it'll be interesting to see where it takes off in this next storyline.
Have you ever thought of taking up historical fiction books?
Maybe I'll give it a try. Let's see, then on page 235, got Motor Crush number 4. The second issue comes out next week, so if you're interested, you can get caught up pretty quickly. This is the Team Batgirl, Brendan Fletcher, Cam Stewart, and Babs Tarr is the artist, and it's their sort of futuristic motorcycle racers. And there was a real twist at the end of the first issue, so it's cool art and a fun story, and I'd say pick it up. Support these creators with their new. It's the first time they've done a creator-owned book, so they're all kind of nervous and excited about it. And then finally, I had for collections Wayward trade paperback volume 4, Threads and Portents. This is another series that I only pick up in trade. It's about a magical girl, I guess, who's the first story arc over the first couple of volumes took place in Japan, because her heritage is half Japanese, half Irish. So in the first book, she went to go live with her mom in Japan and experienced all the kind of crazy mythological Japanese mythological creatures and things going on. So it was very much steeped in that kind of mythology. And now in this trade, with this storyline, she's going back to Ireland to confront her father, who never told her about any of this magical stuff.
Mhm.
And now this is going to focus more on the Irish heritage and sort of the Irish mythology. So it'll be interesting to see how they make that transition.
I was getting this up through issue 12, I think, the first 2 arcs.
Yeah. It's a good fun series.
I just remember there being lots of cats on the covers for a while.
Yeah, there was one of her friends was a girl who could just turn into a bunch of cats. And it's written by Jim Zub, he's a pretty cool writer. If you've never seen any of his stuff, he started out on a series called Skull Kickers, which was like a sort of a Dungeons and Dragons gone wild. But yeah, he's a real fun writer. So if anytime you can pick up something from Jim Zub, I would recommend it.
Okay. I had from Image, my only number 1 was Royal City number 1. And again, I don't know why I did it. Jeff Lemire is the creative, writer and artist, I believe. This kind of, they're saying here it's a return to his kind of his thematic roots with like they did with Essex County, which I haven't read yet. But I've been reading other Lemire titles I've liked. I've kind of come on late to the Jeff Lemire train, so I'm going to try this out kind of looks slice of life. I know Mitch is really a fan of slice of life books. So we'll see here what Jeff Lemire has. This is an ongoing monthly. This is not a mini series, they're saying. So, so coming out from Image. And then back to, I wanted to touch on this that Raphael brought up, and I guess, yeah, you and I were the only ones that had this on. Over the holidays, I was able to find a good sale on artist editions from Image, the giant size artist proofs, they call them. I should call them by what they call them, because there's a number of these out there by different publishers. And really all these are reprints in black and white, so that you can really see the art kind of shine through. Unlike others, they're just at 11 by 17, so not quite full size, but very impressive volumes. So I picked up, trying to think, Injection #1, Walking Dead #1, and I'm just kind of neat that the Image is doing this. So if anybody, and boy, I was going to say, of all the books that I did get, this is going to be my favorite of the group, because I love the regular series so far, and so this is going to really look nice. It's just a very big production. I dare you to find a bookcase big enough to stand this up on it. Anyway, back to the regular stuff. As I talked, Injection #11 starts a new story arc. I read this being the Warren Ellis fan that I am, with Declan Shalvey and Jordi Belair. So good hopping on point for this series, which I'm a little behind on. So that's why I'm not really talking much about this, other than to say that next up is Old Guard #2. Can't say anything about this other than I liked the premise. Issue 1's not out yet, but another monthly series from Greg Rucka. And then lastly, this is a follow-up to a series from several years ago just called Planetoid. Planetoid Praxis is a creator-owned book written and drawn by Ken Gehring. Very interesting and intriguing storytelling style in the first series. And artistic style as well. I'm looking forward to seeing if he does it again, and I have no reason not to. So, and I would recommend this to fans of, if you are now starting to miss Prophet, the series from Brandon Graham, or enjoy other Brandon Graham type properties like Island, you might want to pick this up. And that's all we have from Image. And so, because for a second month in a row he sat so patiently at his desk during our Image segment, we'll turn things over to Randy to get us started with his forte, Marvel Comics.
Woohoo! Starting out with some #1s from Marvel Comics. On page 12 and 13, we got The Man-Thing, #1. The cool thing about this is it's written by R.L. Stine of Goosebumps fame. But reading the kind of summary, it sounds weird. It says that the Man-Thing has regained his ability to speak, and he's taken Hollywood by storm. That in itself sounds like a pretty strange book. But he's being drawn back to his swamp that he used to protect. You know, had the nexus of all realities. So just putting R.L. Stine on the book right there is enough for everybody to pick it up and see what it's about. Did you guys ever see the Man-Thing movie that they came out with?
No.
Oh yeah, Marvel came out around the time of Ghost Rider and Punisher. There was a Man-Thing movie that was kind of more just a horror movie. The Man-Thing was a monster killing people in his swamp. So worth a watch. It's not terrible.
And that was in the theaters, not television?
Oh yeah, it was in the theaters. It's out on DVD.
Wow.
So yeah, everybody wants to borrow it, just let me know.
No thanks.
Then moving on to the other #1 is X-Men Prime on page 16 and 17. This is going to be kind of the recap book after the I versus X storyline. It's looks like you got the X-Men kind of being X-Men again. So it's going to kind of start with a new status quo of the X-Men verse. You got Kitty Pryde, who's going to start leading the X-Men again. Cool thing there is if you look at Cyclops, it looks like he's wearing the same uniform he was at the end of the X-Men Apocalypse movie. So, and you got some other characters sporting their original outfits.
Is that Hank Pym, lower right?
I think that's the Beast, Hank McCoy.
Or McCoy, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So, not really sure if you've been reading their book. I don't know if he now has the ability to turn into a beast because he's been dabbling in some weird magic. But I won't get into that now. But
Well, just to kind of tag off this too, we've got a State of the X-Men episode scheduled for, it's not going to be a little while, but May. So this should give us some time to get some of what they're going to, figure out what they're going to do with the X-Men line, and maybe give us some time to figure out how we feel about it.
yeah, hopefully they got a lot of new books coming out, which I'm excited for. So
Yeah.
you know me, I'll be reading all of them. And then to the returning books from Marvel, we have Inhumans versus X-Men number 6 of 6. So we're finally going to figure out what happens at the end of this war. So it says it's a oversized book, 40 pages. So I'm excited to figure out what's going on. It's I've liked it so far. Anybody else reading this one?
Mm-mm.
I'm
No.
the only one.
Yeah.
Well, Alec can back me up. I think it's pretty good.
Is Travis? I've got Alec, Travis, Ruben are our X-Men go-tos.
Yeah, I think we're all reading it. So I'm not sure how those guys like it or not, but I've been liking the story. The X-Men are kind of finally like on the offensive, fighting for themselves rather than just sticking to the shadows. So I like it. Moving on from my second Marvel book, returning is Avengers number 5. I started picking up the Avengers, and it's been a Kang war. The Vision stole Kang as a baby and hid him in the time stream, and that has resulted in a bunch of future Kangs existing as weird paradoxes, and they're all trying to attack the Avengers. And last I read in Avengers number 3, they all went back in time and kind of killed the Avengers as kids. So now the Avengers are all existing outside of time and have to. It's a weird. It makes your head hurt reading this book, but the artwork is beautiful, and it's a neat story. So
And Mark Wade's on it, so it sounds like it's in good hands. Good hands.
yeah, and plus it has Hercules in it, which is one of my new old favorite comic characters in the Marvel universe. And now moving to what could be my new favorite character in the Marvel universe is Hulk, number 4. This is kind of a cool book because you have Jennifer Walters now after the events of Civil War, and she's trying to just be herself now instead of the Hulk. But now the Hulk is kind of creeping up out of her in times when she can't control it anymore. So, and I like the design of the Hulk too, where she's more gray and has these like green veins all over her. She looks really menacing. And we've only read number 1. It's the only one that's out so far, but it's awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the continuation of this.
It's definitely a big change for the She-Hulk.
Definitely, yeah, because she used to be She-Hulk all the time.
Yeah, she was a very in control Hulk.
Yeah, but it's like in the first one, like they show her around her apartment, and like she can't reach things on the top shelf anymore because she's not tall She-Hulk. It's like she's in her own life, but it's not her life anymore, and she's trying to adjust.
So she kind of has to like learn how to be human again.
In a way, yeah.
Interesting.
In dealing with kind of the original Hulk premise of the evil Hulk breaking out in times of stress. So it's a good book. Everybody should be checking that one out. And that's it for me for Marvel.
Alrighty, well, that leads us then to Raphael to take over.
All right then. Well, I had quite a few similar picks. The first one that I had was Swamp Thing number 1. Oh, excuse me, Man Thing number 1. There's a huge difference. We all know that.
What you did there.
I think it's also interesting that they let him speak now. The few times that I've seen him in comics, he's always been that silent character who kind of is more of like actions over words. But at the same time, I don't think I've ever read like just a Man-Thing comic. I think I've only seen him popping up in other people's comics. So just kind of a fun character who I'm willing to give a shot. I love Marvel, so I'll take their version of Swamp Thing any day.
Yeah, he was in the Howling Commandos, and I don't think I've ever seen him speak in a comic ever. So
I know that I think it was like it was some annual issue back when they had Ultimate Marvel, but there was one comic where he fought Ghost Rider, and that was kind of cool. He actually held his own, so I thought that was kind of a neat way for me to kind of get into the character. But
I'll be honest, I don't even know his origin. I always look at him as a Swamp Thing ripoff, so I've kind of never given him the time of day. But I'll give him. I'm going to looking forward to giving him a new chance simply because of the writer.
I think his origin is even just like Swamp Things. I think there's kind of a lot of overlap between the characters.
yeah,
But,
I know
my
he
next-
fell into a swamp and became the Man Thing.
Isn't that the same thing that happened to Swamp Thing? Only he was a scientist who fell into a swamp.
Yeah, he's working on a biorestorative formula. He was covered in it and then ran flaming into the swamp, covered in his own biorestorative formula. And then Alan Moore happened.
Yeah, and then he changed everything.
Well, the next pick I had was also X-Men Prime #1. I do like X-Men quite a bit, but I always have a hard time either picking an X-Men like a title to read, because there's always like 3 or 4 at the same time. And I'm never too sure which one I actually have to pick up and if I have to read the other one. So if there's ever just like a one-shot that kind of introduces like a new universe and like a new set of teams, I'll definitely pick it up just because I do like X-Men. I just kind of never know where to start. A quick question for Randy, though. Is that Sabretooth up there by Angel on the top right? And what's up with Angel's wings? What did I miss here?
Okay, so yes, Sabretooth is a good guy now because of the whole remember the Red Skull when everybody did a flip-flop?
Is Axis still a thing even after Secret War? So it's Axis Sabretooth?
Yes, some people stayed inverted from Axis, and Sabretooth was one of those. So Sabretooth is now pretty much the Wolverine of the X-Men, and he's been a pretty cool character. So,
okay, well,
yeah.
I definitely like to see more of him. And
you got that going on. And Angel, it was the Black Vortex. So this is Angel from the original X-Men. He went through the Black Vortex and got these cosmic wings, and now they're drawing them as white wings. They were originally they look like fire. But yeah, he's retained his Black Vortex powers, and that's what's going on there.
Question for you too: is that Old Man Logan to the left?
That is Old Man Logan. He's still hanging out with the X-Men too.
See, because of what everybody's been talking about, I've been catching up on Old Man Logan over the holiday break. So I'm going to want to talk to you offline about some things.
My door is always open for some X-Men history.
I didn't even recognize Beast in the bottom right there. I had no idea who that was. I'm glad Phil asked that question because some of these people I can't even pick them out. So.
Well, the other interesting thing is you have the original Jean Grey there, and then to her left you have her somewhat daughter who is older than her now, and that's Rachel Summers.
Yeah, the X-Men are pretty confusing. That's what I'm starting to learn from this conversation.
I just hear that Jean Grey is getting her own miniseries or monthly series. Is that old news?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay, so all right.
Well, now that we've had a long and detailed discussion about X-Men, let's get to let's get to some returning titles. The first one I have is The Punisher #10. And you guys have heard me talk about this before. This is the comic that I love to hate, and I don't know why. Because I've picked up all 10 issues, and I always pick them up the day they come out, but I still won't admit to liking this comic. Frank Castle kind of almost died in the last few ones. Like, he's kind of missing right now. And in his last issue, he just kind of walks into like a hunting lodge and murders like a whole bunch of people. So it's just Frank Castle murdering people. Like, that's the entire plot of the comic. And I don't know why I like it. Like, there should be so much more than that.
I would call you a Marvel zombie for the things you just said.
Once again, I don't know why I keep buying it, but I'll still pick up issue 10. I'm waiting for it to get really awesome out of nowhere, because I know it can be. It's right at the edge. They have a drug that just makes people violent. It's just like a violence drug, and that's great. That's great for a Punisher story right there. They just never really use it to an extent where it's like actually fun to read.
You know, I'm going to kind of, I interrupt because when I was putting this together. I noticed it was being written by Becky Cloonan, and I hear good things about Becky Cloonan. But I'm not immediately familiar with anything else she's done. Does that ring a bell with anyone else?
Yeah, the name is definitely familiar.
I'll do a quick search, but anyway.
Make a Google, Phil.
Yes, I will make a Google. Do not wait for that, Google. Please proceed.
All right. My next one is Ghost Rider #5, and you can find that on page 75. So far, I think Ghost Rider is on issue 2 right now, and he's kind of doing a team up where he's fighting alongside the new Totally Awesome Hulk and the new Wolverine. The few comics that they've done so far, it hasn't really focused on Ghost Rider so much. It's kind of shoehorned in Hulk and Wolverine. They're kind of fighting like a giant mutated kind of it starts off as like a mutated rat, and the rat has the ability to kind of gain powers by touching other things or like absorbing part of like their blood. So like it bites the Hulk, and the little rat turns into like a giant kind of Hulk monster. And then Hulk calls in Wolverine to try to help him out, but in the process it drinks Wolverine's blood, and now you have a Hulk monster that can also heal and has claws. So the whole comic just kind of keeps building up this one enemy while Ghost Rider's kind of doing his own thing. And I think it's going to be super fun to see him kind of team up with all these characters. His first run, he didn't interact with the Marvel Universe at all. So it's really kind of fun seeing him kind of just start taking on like these other superheroes and then kind of team up with them. I think it's a really good sign for the character that he's finally going to get a little bit more prime time. Kind of like he's got to get out there a little bit more and kind of show up more than the original Ghost Rider did, which I'm super happy about. So you guys know I love Ghost Rider. It's still written by Felipe Smith, and the artwork is by Danio Beyruth, and it's a lot more reminiscent of the original series. So definitely pick it up. It's a must read if you're asking me.
Okay.
And then I believe I have one more, which is actually a collection. And that is Iron Fist, The Living Weapon, the complete collection trade paperback. The reason this is on the list is because I don't really know anything about Iron Fist, but I recently started playing as him on Marvel Heroes, and there's like a bug with the physics engine where if you punch somebody, they just ragdoll across like the entire map. And I just thought it was hilarious, and that got me really interested in the character. So thanks to that little bug, I'm going to try to pick this up so I can kind of get into the character a little bit. I know he hangs out with Luke Cage a lot, but I kind of want to see him kind of doing a solo run. So if anyone else has a recommendation, send those my way, because I definitely want to see more of this character.
No, I think Mitch has something to say about that.
Yeah, that collection is actually on my list too. It's a very good collection. I think you'll be happy with that for sure. It gives you a lot of his backstory and everything, so very good choice.
We can segue right over to you also, Mitch.
Oh, okay. So I guess speaking of Iron Fists, how about Iron Fist #1 is a good place to start if you want to see what's up with the current version of the Iron Fist. As it mentions here in the write-up, the ancient city of Kunlun is in ruins, and there's questions whether the Iron Fist power will continue to function. So Danny Rand is he's questioning himself, he's questioning his power, and I think that's kind of a good place for a hero to start off a new series in, sort of at his low point. So I'm at least interested in it, and I'll pick up the first issue just to see what it's all about. That's really my only one for Marvel Comics, other than a couple of trade paperbacks. So I've got, as Raphael mentioned, the Iron Fist, but then I've got a couple of Captain America old printings of old stories. This is The Secret Empire, which I don't know if you watched your social media recently, but they're teasing a new Secret Empire storyline based on the new Hydra cap. So if you want to go back and read the original storyline for the Secret Empire, you can pick up this new printing of the trade paperback. These are some very old issues from the 60s and 70s, issues 169 through 176. It's a good storyline, and you get to see, old school storytelling. And then my other trade paperback is another Captain America collection, the Justice is Served collection. Collects a bunch of different different issues from, well, I guess these are more recent issues, but not too much more recent. 300 to 332, 278. It's just a bunch of the cool storylines. A lot of them from the 80s too that I read. You know, the Flag Smasher and some of those. You get to see the origin of D-Man, one of the worst characters in the Marvel universe, but he had an interesting beginning until they turned him into a sort of hobo superhero. But I can't read current Captain America for reasons, so I'll just continue to read old Captain America.
You should. It's pretty good.
Nah.
We'll still give you a no prize, Mitch.
Okay.
By the way, shame on us for not knowing more about who that Becky Cloonan person was, because her repertoire, her portfolio is impressive. But most notably for us, it's Gotham Academy that we have admired her work for. So I did do a Google and just wanted to follow up on that. I have Marvel, though. X-Men Prime is going to be my doorway back into the X-Men universe. Maybe I'm going to, even though it's not called as much, maybe see if I can have my own little X-Men rebirth. Because I've been kind of maybe looking to grow my Marvel intake. But for now, it consists of Spider-Man, and I'm getting Spider-Gwen only because her story intersects with Miles Morales in Spider-Man 14 and Spider-Gwen 18. We have the penultimate and the finale of the Sitting in a Tree storyline, where they are rumored at having a romance. It happens in a different universe. So I don't know how much of it will last when the storyline's over. We'll see. And it's if worst case scenario, it'll be a fun little what if tale. So I'm looking forward to that. Next, also from Bendis, Jessica Jones. Loved the original Alias series. The new incarnation of this story respects that mantle and pretty much kind of picks off where it left off as far as quality goes. I don't really see as though they skipped a beat. Next for me comes Hawkeye #4, starring Kate Bishop. I really enjoyed the first issue. I'm going to let these pile up, though, so I can power through the first arc. Not much to say on this. Is anybody reading new Hawkeye? Have comments on this?
I've read some of them, and it's a pretty fun series. I liked when she went out in LA. The trade paperbacks of the previous Hawkeye series, she did that. She went out to LA, tried to start her own detective agency, and it's really, really sort of humble beginnings. She doesn't have enough money for a proper bow, and she's got a handwritten sign on her front door, and it's pretty funny.
I became familiar with her in Matt Fraction's volume on the series, but then I stopped reading Hawkeye after he left. So I know this.
Yeah, they continued on and focused a little bit more on Kate Bishop, at least for a few whole trades. So
okay,
it'd be good for you.
Lemire's run. I don't remember who took over right after that. He's doing it now. Isn't he?
Yeah, I think it was. So those are still worth picking up as sort of precursor to what's going on here.
Okay, I'll bridge the gap then. And then lastly, not really something I'm going to pick up, but I thought was kind of interesting. They've got the Monsters series going, or story arc going through some series. This is a collection of that, but what I thought was noteworthy of this was the size. This is a hardcover, and oh my gosh, I don't even see it listed here. Hold on, it's on page 100. This is a huge book, is what made me take note. And it's like 2 feet tall by, I'm sorry, that was my whole point of putting this in our presentation today, and I totally left it out. Here we go. The dimensions, it's 168 pages. It is 14 1/4 inches wide by 21 1/4 inches tall. So the book itself is monster sized. Might be fun for kids or the inner child in you. Anybody know about that storyline? Is that doing it for anyone? I didn't heard us mention it.
It hasn't really started yet.
No, but it's not like, but it's been in solicits, right? Is anybody like following this particular storyline?
I'm gonna when it comes out,
Okay.
but it's I don't think it, and they've only alluded to it at the end of Civil War.
All right. Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, that's all the premier publishers. So let's turn our attention to the back half of the previews catalog. It's the miscellaneous indie and merchandise sections. We'll start with talking indie comics, and we've all got some. So, Randy, I'll have you get us started.
All right, I found one that looked pretty interesting, and that is on page 367. It is the terms and conditions. So this is word for word verbatim the terms and conditions contract that you signed with Apple. But they have found a way to they take Steve Jobs and they run him through a bunch of different comic types. And you basically read the terms and conditions in comic format. It's 108 pages. It's only $15. And I might actually pick it up just to say that I've read it once, because I do have an iPhone. And, but I just think the concept of it is hilarious.
I wonder if you'll have an iPhone after you're done.
That's a good question. Well, I will for at least 2 years because I just signed the contract.
I love that cover. I have that original X-Men cover.
Yeah. So it's they're just doing a bunch of plays. You can see all around, you have all the different comic styles. I see like Popeye and Close to Home, Simpsons. There's just a whole bunch. And so that in itself, the artwork, even if you don't want to read it, it should be pretty cool.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
there you go.
Raphael, that'll bring it to you.
Okay, the first selection I had is on page, let me see, 430, and that's Assassin's Creed Reflections. This is like an anniversary thing that they're doing, and it kind of focuses on, I think in their words, like the more popular assassins. It focuses on like the original bloodline of Altair, who's the character in the very first game, and then you get Ezio, who's been like a character forever, and then it switches to Edward Kenway, and then his descendant Connor. So it's none of the new characters from the last two games that weren't very well received, which I think is a pretty smart move tactically. It's just supposed to be kind of like a celebration of like the game and the other comics that they've put out. So far, I don't think I've picked up any Assassin's Creed comics from Titan that I haven't liked. So I'm definitely going to pick this up because those characters have kind of been done for a little while. So it's nice to see them come back in just any form. The title that I picked after that is Warhammer Revelations 1 of 4. That's on page 429. And if you've heard me talk about this comic before, that's because this is technically issue 5. Titan is going to, I guess, kind of do this in like little arcs, but it's going to be kind of like a larger narrative. The last Warhammer series they did, I think, was called like Damnation or something like that, and that was also 4 parts. This is still following the same characters, just kind of in like a different campaign. So you can pick up with the same story that you were reading last time, but still kind of like if you haven't read it before, just pick this up as a starting point and not miss too much. So more Warhammer, which is full of giant soldiers and giant power armor swinging giant chainsaw swords, which is basically everything I love in one comic.
Have you seen the new video game that's out?
I think they have. When you say the new video game that's out, like it's no longer like a licensed property, or they don't care about the license as much. So there's like 6 new games out.
Oh, well, this one is like the new Space Hulk. But it's first-person shooter, like squad based.
Yep, they have that one that just came out, and then they just released the alpha kind of stage of the MMO. That they're putting out for it as well. So there's quite a few other Warhammer properties coming out at the same time. But that is it for me.
Okay. Mitch, take over for Raphael.
Sure. My first title is from Aftershock Comics. It's kind of a new publisher that's made some interesting waves this last year by signing some big named artists and writers to their own creator-owned titles. And one of those titles is Animosity. Here's the volume 1 from Marguerite Bennett, who we mentioned previously. And this is an interesting story about what would happen if one day all animals developed human consciousness, and how would that upset the world. So this is basically a story of, a girl and her dog, but suddenly the dog is like now a little human person, basically, has at least a human personality, and so do all the other animals. So how do humans and animals live together? And the answer is probably not very good, but it's a fun story, I think. I haven't read any of it though. I wanna dive into it and see what it's all about.
Issue 4 of this just came out, and that's the end of the first arc. So I'm about ready to get into this. I think the dog acts as her escort through an antagonistic animal world, for a little while at least. So yeah, I'm be interesting. We should get together on this too. I just need to take a whole bunch of vacation time and just read comics.
Yeah, why not?
I don't have time to read comics anymore. What else did you have, sir?
Let's see. Then on page 336, I had the latest Valerian graphic novel that's been translated. This is volume 15, and the last few volumes have been more of a single story arc. Most of the other volumes have been just sort of random adventures. But this time around, they're continuing the story arc, I believe, from the last 2 chapters. And Cinebook has been producing them more frequently too. Like they produced, I think, 3 volumes last year, and they're going to do at least 2 more volumes this year. So they're really kind of cranking them out if you want to catch up on the full story before the movie comes out.
Can I ask, is the series completed and we're just waiting for them to catch up in English, or did they even keep putting our foreign language versions still coming out?
I'm pretty sure it's been completed, and we're just getting the English language versions.
Okay.
Can't say
there are.
for sure. No.
Okay.
At least 16. I know that.
Okay. All right.
And then next I had another English language translation on page 383. This is the Metabaron, books 1 and 2. I've actually got the first book of this. As you can see, the writer is Alejandro Jodorowsky, Jerry Frizen as well, the artist Nico Henriken. And this is a very interesting story, very interesting book. It's based off of the Inkle, which is a very famous graphic novel from Europe, and it takes place in that universe. And it's about an undefeatable warrior named the Metabaron, and sort of his adventures. But what's really interesting about this is the publisher, Humanoids. They've been publishing these graphic novels for a long time. I think they were started up in 1974, somewhere around there. But they just recently took back their English language rights. So last year, 2016, was a big year for them. They produced a bunch of different books in English language. So if you're interested in European comics, I would say look up Humanoids and look up the recent things that they've published. It's very much like our favorite Magnetic Press, where it's high quality hardcovers for decent price.
They didn't do Leaning Girl though, did they? That's yet a third.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Alaxis Press.
Alaxis.
That's a different one. Yeah. I think Humanoids just got their English language rights back in like 2015. So 2016 was the first year that they started producing, but they've got rights to like the Inkle, of course, which they're going to produce a 30-page special from the Inkle for Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah,
That's
so if you
good.
want to get into that story, and because they've got They've got a lot of rights to
Inkle was
Jodorowsky.
Moebius, wasn't he? Wasn't it?
Yeah, yep. They've got a lot of rights to the Mobius catalog, to the Jodorowsky catalog. They've got things like Barbarella. You know, maybe a lot of people didn't know that that was an actual comic book, but that's where it started. So a lot of cool stuff coming from them. I would definitely recommend looking into them.
Darn you. All right. Well, then I guess I'm not going to be able to buy Motor Girl #4 from Terry Moore and Abstract Studios, which is a fun book. It's a nice departure from Rachel Rising. Let me put it that way, which I enjoyed, but for totally different reasons. So it's nice. Thank you, Terry Moore, for giving us something that's a bit more fun. And Providence #12 of 12 from Avatar Press. This is Alan Moore's homage to, I don't know if you would call it that, to the Cthulhu mythos. Daryl, this reminded me of Daryl, because Daryl talked about this book at about the issue 6 or 7 mark, and he was enjoying it. I have not been reading it because after reading, there's some books that preface this, some series that actually preface this that he put out. And after reading this, it's pretty deep, and I didn't want to have the months in between issues. I'm going to power through this at some point, you know, when I'm feeling extra joyful. And then to close things out, Grass Kings #1, Matt Kint at Boom Studios with Tyler Jenkins. This kind of sounded interesting. Sounds like kind of a little out of the way place, small town America, and an enigmatic young woman named Maria flees into their community in search of safe haven. So I'm not really sure what to expect here, but just given the names on it, I'm checking it out for those reasons. Those are all the miscellaneous comics. So let's talk about miscellaneous merchandise. Raphael and Mitch are the only ones with the cool toys to play with this month. So Raphael, why don't you start us off? What kind of goodies did you find?
All right. The first thing I have is Aliens Series 10 action figures. These are Kenner remakes, and you can find them on page 534. The reason why I put these down is because as a child who grew up in the 90s, that's around the time that Kenner was putting out these original toys. These are all modern remakes of kind of like I almost want to say like off-brand Alien toys they came back out with back around, I think, the time like the Alien Resurrection movie was coming out. So the premise of like the toy line was they were like, let's just combine aliens with like a random animal. So the ones you see in this picture is like, what if like an alien face hugger grabbed onto a gorilla? And the one next to that is like, what if an alien face hugger somehow was able to face hug a mantis? And I actually had the original version of the Alien Mantis action figure when I was like 6 years old. So to see that again, but this time kind of like really cool and have like a brand new sculpt and everything like that, is just really awesome. And a lot of the toys actually have like the same gimmicks that they had back in the 90s. So I believe the Mantis one actually glows in the dark, and you really can't get it any cooler than that. So I'm super excited to pick that up again and own it again as an adult. And then the next item that I had was Key and Peele t-shirts, which I didn't even know was an actual thing. You can't
nothing about these.
You can't see the full quote on that shirt in the back there, but it says, "We gonna Drax them splounced," which is a reference that you'll only get if you actually watch the show. I did watch that episode, and I still don't totally get it. But just that you actually have like Key and Peele merchandise, like I didn't even think that was a thing. And it might just be fun to own now that the show is actually over. So I definitely wear one of those t-shirts. Those are awesome.
I have never heard of. Is this a television show? I've never heard of these characters.
Key and Peele was a sketch comedy show where they just kind of ran like short little, really, really funny like skits. And the shirt in the back is a reference to two guys on an airline that you don't want to sit next to because they're so eccentric.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is this on television or is this a web series?
It was a Comedy Central show, but you can see the whole thing on YouTube now.
Oh, okay. you put this on your sheet, and I'm like typing this in to put it on. It's like, whoo. So very nice. You win the award for unique item of the month.
Oh, normally that goes to Mitch. Awesome.
Well, I was going to say, unless Mitch can beat it.
I don't know about that, but page 621. How about some new Star Wars plushies? I just thought this was interesting because, first of all, it's the new ships from Rogue One, the U-Wing, and the new TIE Fighter, whatever they call that, the TIE Striker. But these are such weird things to make into plushies because they're like very sharp, angular starships. I don't know why you want to hug one.
I just want to take a nap on that.
Yeah. I just thought that was funny. That's why I put those in there. And then the other one I had that I thought was kind of cool on page 616. How about your very own Eye of Agamotto keyring? You too can have an Infinity Stone right in your pocket.
I already got one.
All
You got one of
right.
these, Randy?
He's already got an Infinity Stone.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was just making a bad joke. Sorry.
So yeah, not a lot of toys, but some kind of fun ones, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of small in the miscellaneous department. Still recovering from all that gift giving in the seasons past.
Yeah.
All right, then. With that, let's wrap up. Based on our selections, by the way, from the panelists that they submitted before the show, here's how some of this month's numbers stacked up. Hopefully, at least a few of the over 70 items that we recommended are things that you found interesting and may not have otherwise been aware of. I'd like to thank our panelists for going through this month's 600-plus page issue of previews and whittling down to just a few favorites lists to give you guys a chance to make any last-minute shout-outs and or tell us where you can be found. Mitch.
Hi, this is Mitch. I've been doing a lot of Let's Plays and stuff on YouTube, but I found out that I can't have a URL of my own. That's why you couldn't find me that one time that you looked for me,
Yeah.
Phil. Remember there is someone with the name that I use, Zebu Nation, but they're like a Spanish language singer of some sort.
Oh, wow.
So I have
That
to
is
get my.
great. I love
It
that.
is great, yeah. So I need to find a new URL, but in order to do that, I need more subs. I need like 100 subs. So
You
if
could
you're
just take up
interested,
singing.
I could just take up Spanish language singing.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that. But I don't know. Don't want to cross the streams there on that one. So you can find me though on Twitter at Zebu_Nation. So that might be a better way to try to find me.
Alrighty. Raphael, how should we find you?
Well, normally I'm hidden somewhere in the forest in a ghillie suit, so I try not to be found. But if you say my name backwards 3 times into a mirror, I'll come give you a piggyback ride. That's kind of the bargain that I have right now with my PR guys.
Oh, man. Save us, Randy.
Hey, this is Randy. You can find me mainly been on Instagram lately as Silent Flick. Been doing a lot of Lego builds. Trying to build me a Lego Millennium Falcon.
Oh, that's fun. I was going to say, with some of those X-Wing figures you posted with those Legos
No, those were the new
from the game.
the X-Wing game with they weren't the plushy versions, but they were the same ships.
Don't want to take a nap on those. All right. Well, hey, if you haven't already, we invite you to tune into our regular podcast where we appear twice a month in all your favorite podcatchers. Our big annual Best of 2016 show comes out next Monday, January 16th. Episode 69 comes out 2 weeks later, and we'll be back here again in 1 month on YouTube, February 5th. Talk about all the all the comics that are coming out in April. Until then, I am Phil, your host. Here is to good comics.